It was the era in Boston sports history when a snowplow driving baseball lifer from Walpole, Massachusetts became an instant folk hero, and he often sounded like he was nodding off from anesthesia. We're talking about Morgan's Magic and the 1988 and 1990 Boston Red Sox. My name is Joel Beck.
And I'm Chad Konecki, and today's guest, Ken West, no relation to the umpire Joe West, is a 30-year veteran of Boston sports radio and a diehard Red Sox fan. Episode 5 of Where Were You begins now.
Hey, where were you?
Where were you?
Where were you?
Where were you?
Where were you when the sports ball thing happened that was awesome or really bad? These guys want to talk about it, Joel and Chad. Did a game change your life? Were you there in the crowd? Did you weep like a baby because you were so proud? Do you have a tattoo or a ritual or two that you actually believe's the reason why they win or lose? Yeah, where were you? Where were you?
Where were you?
Where were you for history in the making? Did it make you happy or crazy mad? These guys want to talk about it, not a single doubt about it. Listen to them talk about it, Joel and Chad.
Hello, world, and welcome to Where Were You? This is episode 5. My name is Joel Beck, alongside my co-host Chad Konecki. As always, Chad, I can't believe we've done this. Is number 5. It's now a thing. It's actually I was surprised when we got 1 off the ground, and now we're up to 5.
It's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird, but people seem to like it so far. But we're happy to be here. We have a fun show. We've got a fun topic, and most of all, we have a fun guest. You can probably see him here. This is a guy I've known for a long time. We go way back to when I used to work in radio. He keeps the tradition alive on Where Were You this week, where we invite mostly Boston area radio personalities named Ken or Kenny. We had Kenny Young on a couple of weeks ago. This guy is a radio veteran, both on the air, behind the scenes for more than 30 years at radio stations like WZLX, WROR, WBOS, and now he's back at his and also my alma mater, Emerson College. He's the brand manager at WERS 88.9. He's a lifelong Red Sox diehard, and he once saw, and Chad, this is true, he once saw the lights go out mid-game at Fenway Park, only for Steve Lyons to pull off the hidden ball trick when the lights came back on. So
You're
can't wait.
kidding.
I hope we can hear some of that story. But please welcome to the program, Ken West.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you both. Chad, Joel, it's great to be with you. I love this podcast.
We love it too. Thank you for doing this. So our topic today is a fun one. I picked this one because I thought it might be a fun little a cleanse, an elixir, if you will, coming off the disheartening Red Sox loss to the Yankees in the playoffs in the wild card series. We're all a little bummed about that. So I thought we might go back to a simpler time, a happier time, when the Red Sox were run by a guy who drove a snowplow on the Mass Pike from Walpole, Massachusetts. Joe Morgan and Morgan's Magic. We're going to specifically concentrate on the 1988 and the 1990 Boston Red Sox seasons, which I think both of you guys and I have some strong affiliations and memories with. Am I correct, would you say?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Wheelhouse.
Yeah. This was a fun time. So and for me, I could say personally, I picked this one because this kind of represented my formative years as a baseball fan. I was a little bit of a late bloomer, believe it or not, getting into baseball. I was kind of bitten by the bug in 1986 when I was 10. And then that started to fester in 87, and by 88 it was full on like baseball zombie mode for me, and it's kind of been that way ever since. So I'm looking forward
to carry around like a notebook that was rather disturbing if it were looked at by a psychologist today.
It wasn't a notebook. It was a clipboard that
Much better.
Yeah. Yeah, so this started in 1988. I think I only did it in 1988 where I kept a running log. This is before the internet, before you could go on Baseball Reference and, like, look up stats, and I actually every single game kept a running log of every, wins, losses. I wrote the whole schedule out, who the winning pitcher was, who the losing pitcher was, who had the game-winning RBI in that game. It's like, "Oh, Jody Reed got the game-winning RBI," and I carried it around like Rain Man for the entire 1988 Red Sox season, and I remember going back and just looking at that, the 12 wins in a row that they had in July, and just thinking, it made my heart just soar, like, "Oh, 12
Oh,
wins in
yeah.
a row." So,
Yeah.
but
And you're look at you now.
and look at me now. Look, look at this behind.
That
Nah.
clipboard brought you here.
But yeah, it was yeah, Morgan's Magic. I always look back at it as one of my most favorite memories in Red Sox history, and I'm sure.
Oh,
I
that's
can't
big.
wait.
That's big coming from you.
Yeah, it was so much fun because I think that's really when I was getting into it. But Ken, tell me, I mean, just
Yeah.
um, what are some of your impressions of that year in particular that you remember?
Yeah, so I'm a couple years older than you, so,
Yeah,
I grew up with the late '70s, Yankees rivalry, so Jim
sure,
Rice and Dwight Evans, those guys
Mhm.
those are the Red Sox of my childhood, so when we got to '88 and '90, now I graduated high school in 1987, so this is kind of a couple years before I went to college, so, those guys are still on the team, so, like, my long a couple of certainly Evans was, and Rice. So it was kind of like a bridge between my childhood and as I'm
right.
going into this next phase of my life. And yeah, it
Yeah.
became so exciting. And obviously, something happened in between those, which I'm sure you'll get to, but it just became it became a very exciting time to be old enough to, again, going back to the clipboard, looking at box scores in the newspaper if I couldn't
Right.
watch the games and all that. It was exciting.
That is something I
Yeah.
miss so much, looking at box scores in the newspaper. I mean, it's just not the same. I mean, everybody's on their phones all the time, and I'm reading just as much, but it's not the same. It's not the same feeling that you get when you actually had the paper in your hand and
I
all the
agree. Yeah.
stats were there, but
I still get the Sunday paper, so I do get once a week a
yes.
fix with the box scores.
And there was
But,
nothing like the Sunday sports section of the Boston Globe when
yes,
Peter Gammons and they had the box score, they had the stats of every single team. I mean, it
Yep.
was just if you
yes.
were
Oh
if
my
you were a
god,
baseball fan, it was nuts. Yeah.
I
I would
yeah,
say like 50% of the because my parents didn't we didn't have Nessun yet. It didn't whatever cable package they had. So we would watch
right.
the games on WSBK TV 38 and then if you didn't, then if you didn't have Nessun, then I was sitting in my living room, like Ralphie from A Christmas Story, glued to the radio, listening to Joe Castiglione and Ken Coleman and all these
Right.
guys. But
Bob
the
Starr, the brilliant broadcaster.
Star,
Oh,
yeah,
oh
yes.
darn. Oh,
Oh,
yes.
before we even get to Jerry Trupiano, but yeah. But,
Yes.
Chad, where
Yeah.
were you talk to me about 1988 for you. Where in life,
Yeah, yeah.
what
Well,
was going on in your world then?
I have a similar evolution to Ken, but so the Red Sox of the late '70s that I knew as the hated opposition, right? When Yaz popped out to end that one-game playoff, I
Yeah.
was, overjoyed. So that's 10 years later, I'm not Red Sox hopeless yet, but I'm Red Sox curious in
Okay.
1988. And and,
I'm willing to
um,
experiment and.
I got it. And having been up here going to college for 4 years, it was hard not to become a fan, not just of them, the lovable losers, and that ballpark, and the ethos of the fandom here, but also every Boston team. It was just really hard to not become a fan.
Yeah,
And so by '88, I think I was starting to make the turn, um, and that's when Morgan's Magic happened, and that probably was the launching pad. Um, because '89 I paid a lot of attention, and then '90 I was insane. I think I watched or listened or went to every game.
You were the full metamorphosis by 1990.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes,
Quite a journey.
Yeah, it really is. You came a long
yes.
way, but we welcome you. You know, we're glad
It
you're here to stay.
took me too
But
long, but
but I remember where I was when I found out that Joe Morgan had gotten the job and that McNamara had been fired. I was with my family on the Cape, and I got the news, and I was stunned, you know, and I didn't know anything about this Joe Morgan, and I didn't know until years later that Joe Torre was the guy that they were trying to get, and
Whoa.
almost did. It sounds like it was lined up, and if it had it not been for the 12-game winning streak,
Whoa.
it probably would have been Joe Torre. So,
Well, what about
wow.
Chad? What happens to Chad at that point?
yes, what happens to
Oh,
Chad?
What
Yeah.
a twist, the plot twist.
It's like Back to the Future. My arm is disappearing in the photo. Do you remember where you were, Ken, when he got the job, when they fired
No,
McNamara?
I don't necessarily remember exactly where I was, but I remember going, "Oh, I never heard of the guy."
Yeah, right,
Oh, he's the
right.
third base coach?
He was
Oh,
the
okay,
third
yeah,
base coach, right.
and he's local? Okay, great.
God, and he was such a character, and by the way, we're talking about him like he's gone. He's not gone, he's still alive. He's, like, 95 years old now, and
Yeah,
he still shows up for events, I think, at Fenway sometimes.
Dan Shaughnessy
Wow.
still gets quotes from him for the Globe.
Oh, is that
Oh,
right?
right. Yeah, he does, yeah.
God, do you remember the Joe
Amazing.
Morgan show? I think it was on Channel 7, like, after the news, it was with John Dennis, and it was just the 2 of them recapping, and
I do.
it was a sleep aid, as I recall. It was
I do have to shout out the Joe Morgan, Joe Castiglione pregame were gold. They would talk about Joe Morgan's garden for like they
Oh,
would
I
talk about
remember
the Red Sox a little bit. Like finally they get to the lineup, but they all these tomatoes, Joe.
yeah,
Well,
the
you know,
peppers.
when
Peppers.
I thought about doing zucchini this year, but you know, with the weather, when the Farmer's Almanac came out, it said that we are going to have a rough winter, so I just ended up going with you know, some eggplants, and we'll see how it goes this year, Joe.
all right. Thanks,
That's amazing.
Joe Morgan.
It's really good.
Joseph Michael Morgan. That's what Joe
Joseph Michael
Castiglione used to
Morgan.
call him.
Like,
But
it happened it worked immediately. He was hired, and they immediately went on a 12-game winning streak. He started his managerial career 12-0, and the Red Sox, I
yeah.
think, were 9 games out of first at that point,
Yeah, I think they
and
were one game over 500, like 43 and 42 or something.
and whatever Joe Morgan did during that entire period of time just worked. Every button he pushed. There was another game. I don't know if you guys remember in that winning streak where he pinch hit Jim Rice for Spike Owen, and it was a huge stink because Jim Rice was a superstar, but a fading superstar, but a superstar nonetheless. And they needed somebody to bunt, so they brought in Spike Owen to bunt, and it pissed Jim Rice off, but it also showed. I mean, it
What
was
else
Joe
is
Morgan.
new?
Yeah.
No, but it did show he had those freaky. I do remember he had those freaky instincts, like, oh, just put him in there. I thought you're gonna get a good swing on it. And you know what? About Rice that year, right? You remember when the year started, I was paying attention to this. Like he was disgruntled. He'd been moved from left to
Yeah.
DH, and then Dwight Evans couldn't play first base to save his life. And it was a really, you know, they came out of the gate good, but it didn't look good.
Right.
Well, there was that it was at the weekend of August when they played Detroit, and this was kind of like
Oh.
the end of the streak, right? I mean, I think they came in and won, you know, really well in the first game. I think there was one game where Dwight Evans had like 7 RBI or something like that.
Yes. Yep.
But then they lost the Sunday game. They got blown out like 18-6, and
Yep.
yeah, but I do remember it, you know, those things that Chad was saying about how every string he pulled and just like it was almost like, oh shucks, I'd like, you know, I just that's what I did. And as we get
Yeah.
towards the end of when we get towards the end of it, I do remember that they got swept by the A's at the end of August too. This is obviously after the streak, and I thought, these A's look pretty darn good.
I looked it up, and I mean, if you take away that 12-game winning streak, they were again. They kind of went back to their old ways again. Because they didn't. I mean, they won I think like 88 or 89 games that year, but
I think it was
it
89.
89 they kind of fell back into some of their old ways, and that but the highest of highs, I feel like from in July and August, and then it just that season just ended with such a whimper and such a thud,
Yeah.
because they did end up clinching the division, but they didn't get that on-field celebration because they backed into it. I think Milwaukee lost, and everybody else. So they went in. I remember they came into Cleveland with a chance to win and clinch, and it just never happened. So it was just it was such an unsatisfying end to what was an amazing season.
Well, they did make a fun summer of it. You're right, though. I mean,
Right.
every
Right.
day, just "They won again! I can't believe they won again!"
Right. Right. Yeah. That was those 3 it was like that month-long period where it was just euphoria every day, and they just kept and it was a new hero, Kevin Romine. That
Yes.
was one of my favorite moments. So, yeah, this guy Kevin, it was a, fifth outfielder on the team, hit a walk-off home run, a game I think they were losing like 6-0, and then came back, and he hit a funny story about that. So some friends of mine from high school, this was years ago, and I'm gonna have to see if I remember this story correctly, but actually saw Joe Morgan at a restaurant one time. This was probably like maybe the early 2000s. And they told me that they went up and they asked him if he remembered who the pitcher was that Kevin Romine hit the home run off of in that streak. And he remembered it was Steve Farr. It
Oh,
was
wow.
he
Of
was
course
able
he
to remember
remembered.
that. So yeah.
Well, I knew that they already had used their closer Montgomery, so when they went to far, I knew that Romine had some success. So
Anyways.
My most prominent memory of that season, I wasn't even in state. I think I told you this a couple weeks ago, Joel.
Right.
And I think it was because they'd won 24 home games in a row.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
And so I think I was down on the Jersey Shore with my parents. I grew up in Jersey, and that was an annual thing. I think that was the last year we ever did that, and because I have just graduated from college, and it was on the nightly sports report in New South Jersey that they had won their 24th home game in a row, and I was like, "Wow, this is national news." It was national news.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It was unlike anything. And but I want to get into the 1990 season, which is one that I know you guys both um, have some fun memories about. It was a kind of a similar team and kind of a similar year. There were some new additions on the team this year. They brought in Tom Brunansky, who, foreshadowing, his name may come up later. Tony Tony Pena. But again, this was a Red Sox team that there was no big slugger on the team. Clemens carried the pitching staff. It was Clemens and then a collection of guys that you'd never heard of, like Dana Kicker and
Yep.
Tom Bolton and Greg. I mean, I don't know how. Again, I think only somebody like Joe Morgan could have elicited a winning team out of this collection of characters that they had. So
Yeah, I mean, you look at Tom
Yes.
Bolton, and
Yes.
I'm not even sure he was a real baseball player. I feel like he broke in and just put a uniform on because the guy, he looked like an accountant.
yes, yes, and so did Greg Harris. Greg Harris. I mean, if he walked into the room, you would never. He's the guy who used to ride the T. Do you remember?
Yes.
They would.
Yes.
Yeah.
They made a big deal about him because he would ride the T to work every day,
Yes.
completely unnoticed. I mean, you would
And
just come
wasn't
in.
he ambidextrous? Wasn't we all wanted him to throw
Yes.
lefty?
Yes,
Right.
and he.
Right.
That's right, and he eventually did, but not for the Red Sox. I think. I think
Right,
he.
yes.
I think he finally did it in a game.
And
Yeah.
You've nailed it, Joel. I mean, that was a weird year. They traded for Lee Smith, and you
Yes.
probably could talk about that. They released Bill Buckner in '90, and I
Yes.
remember probably 2 weeks before they released him, I was at the ballpark. He hit a inside the park home run because Claudel Washington like fell over the right field wall,
Yes. Yes.
and the ball just sat there. And Joe and Buckner 4 years after the ball, 4 years after the moment, um, hit an inside the park home run. Anyway, who was your guy, Kenny? Who was your guy on that team? Like your
In not
top
in
2 or 3?
in '90, well, obviously Wade Boggs, right, was the guy, right? Um, was Mike Greenwell still on the team then?
Yes, yes. We
Yes.
didn't even talk about Mike
Because
Greenwell. I had posters all over my wall of Mike Greenwell. I was convinced that Mike Greenwell was going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, and he had a better career than people realize, but I was all in on the Gator. They called him the Gator.
No, I just remember him being like above 290 all the time. He made, great plays. He played hard. It's funny how once he was gone, you never heard. It's like somebody wiped his existence off the earth.
Right,
I
right,
know he did some
right. I
he
mean,
went
some
to
NASCAR
Florida.
stuff.
Yeah, he went to Florida and like was gator hunting, but he was, I feel like he was the original dirt dog in a way. You know what I
yes,
mean?
he had
Yeah,
that
good point.
vibe. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
he was just a solid hitter and, yeah, finished second to Jose Canseco in the MVP in '88.
Right.
He had a monster year.
Mm,
But, yeah, Ellis
yeah.
Burks was another one that was on that team that,
Right.
he lives here in Cleveland, I see him all the time. He goes to this he goes to this pancake restaurant that I go to all the time, and I'm always I I was gonna
Do you ever do it?
one time I went up and said hello, and he was very nice. But
Oh, good.
there was another time where he was sitting behind me, like literally like as close as this is, and I was with my wife and one of my daughters, and we were having breakfast, and he was like, I probably could hear everything we were saying, and I didn't say anything to him because I didn't want to be that guy, but I also didn't hear a thing that my family said the entire breakfast because I was just like, Ellis Burks is behind me. Ellis Burks is behind me. Ellis Burks is behind me. Ellis Burks. And I'm like, I'm probably
That's so funny.
sweating, I just
That reminds me of a story Tom Hanks tells where he was in this fancy restaurant with his wife and his mother-in-law in New York, and the waiter comes over and says, "Mr. Hanks, there's a Mr. DiMaggio in the restaurant who said he'd like to meet you." And Hanks was like, "Joe DiMaggio?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Bye."
that's exactly it. Yeah.
He's like, and then he was like, and I said to when I walked up to him, like, what you have to say is, "You're Joe DiMaggio."
All right, let's get to the big moment that everybody remembers from that season. The 1990 season ended.
Oh,
They were
Wow.
one game
I would
up,
love
right?
to hear from Ken because
It
this is
went to
sort of
game
seminal for him.
162, correct? And they had I think a one game lead going into the final season, just needed to win. And who was at the game? One of you was at the game. Chad, were you actually at the game? The game
I
162?
I was right at the green. In fact, there's the ticket stub right there.
Oh,
Oh boy, I don't know how to do
oh.
that. There it is. Because Ken, you said you slept out after they
yes.
clinched.
Yes. So we were watching the game. We had a dorm called Charles Gate. By the way, now it's called the Charles Gate, and they can charge $1 million a month for it by just putting the word "the" in front of it. It's
Right.
fascinating.
They didn't get rid of the
But
rats, but they added a "the" to it,
no,
right.
but it was right on the corner of Beacon and Charles Gate East, and it was right outside of Kenmore Square. So we were watching the game in my dorm room, and we were literally turning the volume down and we could hear the crowd at Fenway from faintly in
Ah,
the distance. So
so cool. So
yeah,
cool.
so when Brunansky made that catch, turned the volume down, we hear it, and we all just started dancing, and me and 3 or 4 other people from our floor just raced out into Kenmore Square, and people were going nuts. And this guy stops us, this guy in a bow tie. He says, "Pardon me, fellas, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm so and so from the Boston Herald." We're like, "Sure, we'll talk
Did
to
he
you."
have a hat that
And
said
so we give
press
him the
on it and
quote.
everything? And,
I have it. I have that here, and I'll read the quote in a second.
Yes.
But but
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
but so yeah, so eventually we ended up at Fenway, and we slept out because we're like, we're gonna get World Series tickets, and so that's what happened. But on our way to Fenway, this guy asked us, so my roommate, or not my roommate, one of my floor mates, Martin Talty, says, "Awesome," said one of the Emerson students, Martin Talty from Manhattan, "better than New York, better than the Mets in '86." And then I said, "I'm here for the old man," said Ken West of Chicopee. He said his father has been with the Sox all his life, only he's going crazy in Western Mass, and here I am in Kenmore Square.
Wow.
So,
Oh,
Oh,
that's really heartwarming, actually. I love it. Yeah.
well, I did used to go to a lot of games with my dad, and
Sure.
he would, if we're talking old school, he would score the game in his little, his little scorecard every time.
Yep.
And the part two of that story is I remember waking up on the sidewalk in the morning and said Martin Talty standing there with a stack of Boston Heralds in his hand, kicking me, saying, "We made the paper, we made the paper."
Oh,
So that was revelry.
that is amazing. What a time to be alive. Yeah. So for those who are listening or watching who may not know exactly the moment that Ken and Chad are talking about, the Red Sox won the game. Spoiler alert, they won the game, and it ended on a sliding catch in the corner, right field corner at Fenway Park by Tom Brunansky, a ball that off the bat looked like it was either going to wrap around the foul pole or rattle around in the corner. It would have tied the game or put the Red Sox behind, but Brunansky caught to this day, I don't think there's ever been a great picture or camera angle of the catch being made because he kind of disappears into the corner. But Chad, it sounds like did you see it? You actually saw the catch?
we were like, well, some of the few people in the ballpark that could tell this is pre-Green Monster. I mean, sorry, pre-Monster
Correct,
seats.
correct. Pre-Green
And
Monster
so,
would have been
Yeah, wow,
I'd
you're
be
old.
yeah,
real.
pretty
I'd be really old. Sorry, pre-Green Monster seats. And so it was really only the third base side that had the perfect angle. Otherwise, you were blocked by Bernansky's body. And back then, Fenway's right field foul territory was like crushed gravel. I mean, it was like crushed stone. It wasn't even dirt. So, I mean, it was just, it was like, how do they play in that environment? I don't
yeah.
know. But he just slid. I saw the ball go right in his glove. Uh, my girlfriend at the time, same thing. We went nuts, and it was one of only 2 times in my life I've cried because I was happy. Somebody the other day said, "What was the other time?" And I was like, "I don't remember."
I blocked it out. And it was the ending to the season that we were robbed of in 1988, 2 years earlier. We finally got that pig pile on the field, and we got and it happened at Fenway, and I think Wade Boggs rode around on a horse.
Yes, he rode around on a police horse,
Yeah.
and they did an entire lap around the whole wall of the stadium, high-fiving fans. That team was so fun, and it's interesting because this is apropos of nothing, but I was there for them clinching when they beat Detroit a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago, and to clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And people were excited, but it was a palpable difference in the sheer euphoria. And there's probably a million reasons for that. But part of it, I blame social media. But
Oh,
like
true.
people the attention span I mean, that place never shut up in 90. I left after like 45 minutes. There were still like 30,000 people
Wow.
there.
Wow.
And like, and this time we were there for like 25 minutes and it was kind of starting to empty out.
Yeah.
I mean, I did want to interject this Joe Morgan thing because this is like breaking news live update as we record the show. And I want Joel to imitate Joe Morgan. This is I texted Steve Buckley, who writes for The Athletic and is an old buddy of mine who I used to play baseball with.
He wrote for the Herald. Is that the
30
guy?
years ago.
He's not the one who came and interviewed you, was it, Ken? Was it Steve Buckley? No.
No, you know what's funny? I never even paid attention to what this person's name is, but when I pulled this out, the guy's name is Michael
Oh.
Globetti. How did he get a job at the Herald? He has the word globe in his name.
Globetti.
That
All right.
that's comedy.
Sorry,
That's
Chad,
comedy.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. Go ahead. That's amazing, though. Yeah.
So I was like, what was that story about Joe Morgan confusing the two pitchers so he hit a righty instead of a lefty? And Buckley writes back, it's May 3rd. Of course, this is Buckley, he knows everything. May 3rd, 1989. So this really perfectly splits the two seasons we're talking about. Joe Morgan said he thought right-hander Sean Hilgus was left-hander Paul Gilgus, which is why he had righty-hitting Rick Cerrone in the lineup that night instead of lefty-hitting Rich Gedman. He'd been platooning the catchers at the time with Gedman starting against right-handers, so Gedman should have been in the lineup that night. Um, he said, of course, Cerrone hits a homer off Hilgus, and we all thought he was a genius for acting on a hunch.
Amazing. That's amazing.
But then in the post game, they're like, Joe, that's Kilgus is the lefty. And he was like, oh, guess I got that one.
Well, you know, phonics has never been my strong suit. And with the
Joe Morgan. But it worked. Of course it worked. Of course it worked. Yeah.
Of course, it's what we talked
Oh
about.
my God.
Morgan Magic.
Morgan Magic. All right. I want to jump into another segment that we do on this from time to time, which we like to call the existential moment of dread. Now, these weren't the happiest times, but there was a few over these two seasons. Do you guys have any specific memories where you just felt like it's just, you, like you just wanted to just scream, like, and it was just the frustration was at a boiling point. What do you got, Ken?
Well, this is I didn't really scream, but my father and I went to game 1 of the '88 playoffs against
Oh.
Oakland. So it was a Wednesday afternoon at 12:35. We came in from Chicopee, and it was, great. They they didn't they didn't look. I mean, hey, Bruce Hurst is
Yeah.
going. It's gonna work, right? And this is the first time you started looking at the A's and going, there's just too
There's
much pitching in that town. I mean, Dave Stewart and Rick Honeycutt and Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah.
So the moment of dread was after that game. Like I never felt I felt excited to be there, walking in. This is gonna be great. And then as the game progressed, I'm like, this isn't good at all.
Yeah. You mentioned Eckersley. My first, I think the first time I ever felt that existential moment of dread as a baseball fan was the feeling that you got when you saw Eckersley warming up in the bullpen. So I wasn't paying attention much to the Red Sox yet when he played for the Red Sox in the 70s and into the 80s. So my
Yeah.
introduction to him, the first I kind of knew about Eckersley was as the closer for the Oakland A's. And unless Kirk Gibson was coming up to bat in the 9th inning, you knew the game was over. It was just that feeling of seeing him come up. You're like, he was just unhittable that year, and
Yeah.
Totally. And if I'm not mistaken, he saved all 4 games of
I
that.
think he got the MVP of the
ALCS.
series. Yeah,
I think you're right.
in
Yeah.
'88. Yeah,
Yeah, Dennis Eckersley on the Red Sox, it was a totally different. I mean, he completely reinvented himself. It was almost like 2 careers,
Right.
even though obviously it's not. But you're right, Joel. That him being on the mound and the A's the way they were, that's a dread.
yeah. Mariano Rivera is probably the next, and those are the only 2 in my lifetime that I can think of where your heart just sinks when you see him warming up. I can't think of any other. There's been lots of good closers, but those 2, Eckersley and Mo Rivera, is just like, well, good night.
Not to take a shot at ourselves as young fans, but like in what world do we think the team with Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire and Carney Lansford
Yeah.
and that pitching, Dave Henderson,
Yeah,
we're going to lose to the Fox?
right. I think we could do this, guys. It's and it's so funny because it's the A's, and today obviously we live in a much different baseball climate where the A's are don't even have a home anymore, and they're they're the poster
Right.
child for the inequality that exists in the haves and the have-nots in baseball. And but then, you know, I mean, they were a juggernaut. The fact that they only got one championship out of that team is amazing. They could have easily had a three-peat,
Is
but
anybody shocked by the fact that it was, oh yeah, it was just an American League East and an American League
I know.
West.
Right.
And
All
you had to
right.
win.
Yeah,
You
it
had to
was
win the
yeah, only
pennant
4
to
teams
get
made the
into
playoffs.
the American League Championship.
It was a different time.
Yeah. It was like you said on an earlier podcast. We weren't playing in the baseball in November at that time.
Yeah. No, right.
Yeah.
Right. At least not by design. So all right. I want to move to. I skipped over one of our segments. I forgot. I was gonna. But it's probably better that I do it this way, anyways, because it's a happier thing. I like to call the Incredible Hulk moment. And Ken, if you may have heard me talk about this before, but it's a very specific feeling that you have when you are filled with so much adrenaline that you feel like you're going to die, and it's a good feeling. And I've only experienced this about 2 or 3 times in my life. But did you have anything? Did either of you have anything that came close over these 2 seasons that approached that?
Probably the Brunansky catch really, like, that was kind of it, and then everything that kinda transpired after it, which didn't have as much to do with baseball, but it was just the way that kind of encapsulated, the city at in that moment. Your point about that, Chad, about being at both the recent one and the other one, that's pretty striking.
And the only other thing I could think that was pretty Incredible Hulky, I'm pretty sure it was Smith who was in the game, and they were playing Toronto. I was also at that game. As I said, I went to more games probably than I ever have that year. And because the ticket price here is $16.
Yep.
So
Insane.
Those are box seats.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But we rallied against the Toronto closer,
Tom Henke.
it was Tom Hankey, and I was in a right field roof seat, so you're in an open air, and I remember a guy like 3 rows down from the place was going insane because they were closing in on winning the division, and he goes, "Hankey, you done like dinner."
Oh, can we get him on the
The love
show?
for my
Let's find
tutor.
that guy. Get him back here.
Where's that guy?
Okay. Oh, I was there was another Brunansky moment, that season. Tom Brunansky, man, what a folk hero this guy was. So he
Legend.
had a 3 homer game. Do you remember that game against
Yes.
the Blue Jays? So my parents,
I do.
we got standing room seats, and I don't know if you remember. I mean, standing room seats, they're not seats, they're standing. So and at Fenway, it's a park that was built 100 years ago. So good luck. I mean, to see anything from wherever you're standing. We're way up, like, behind the grandstands. But I was at the game that Brunansky hit the 3 home runs, and it was Clemens pitched that game, and it was his first game back after about a month because he had gotten hurt and came back. And that was one of the games that I think it might have been either right before or right after the game that you're talking about, Chad, where they came back against Hankey. So
Yeah, no, I feel like it was a little bit before, but I remember picking up the paper the next day because I was so thrilled and I watched it on TV. I can't believe you were there.
But my memory of the next game, the Brunansky catch game. So I was still in high school. I did catch the end of it when I got home, but I spent the majority of that game at my high school jazz band rehearsal. I was in the Foxborough High School jazz band, and I was playing. And my dad, I remember, kept, like, for some reason he was in the high school, and he kept sneaking in and, like, telling me the score, which as a 14-year-old high schooler was both mortifying and I was glad to get the
Appreciative.
best
Yeah.
appreciative. Like, all right, thanks, Dad. All right, thanks. So, but good times all around. All right, I want to move along to our next segment. Now, this I don't know if I've even told you guys that I'm. You may not even realize that I'm a bit of a horticulturalist. I've got a little bit of a green thumb, and
Oh, like Joe Morgan.
like Joe Morgan.
Like Joe
Well,
Morgan's garden.
he gave me some pointers. Um, but in the spring, I'm sorry, in the fall of 1986, I actually went in my backyard and I planted a Bill Buckner baseball card in the ground, and I over the years that followed, cultivated. I watered it with my tears every single year that they lost in the playoffs. And you're never going to guess, you're never going to believe what sprouted, but a small little shrubbery with
Oh,
look, here's the Buckner card that I planted originally, and I
oh
swear
my.
this is true. This really happened. So I planted it sprouted all these obscure Red Sox players. I thought it might be fun to like maybe we could find a ripe one off of my tree here. And I thought it might be fun to kind of reminisce and go like take a trip down memory lane about some obscure Red Sox players that we knew back in the day. So
I love it.
let's see what we've
Love it.
got here.
I like that.
Um, we've got let's find a good one here. Well, we've talked about some of these guys already. Oh, here we go. Here's somebody that we forgot even played for the Red Sox. Tom Seaver.
Oh, wow.
Tom Seaver with the
Oh,
we played like 6 weeks with the Red Sox in 1986.
yes. I remember Tom Seaver with the Red Sox because I knew Tom Seaver with the Mets, and I don't remember 69 or 73, but I remember right after that, and then he got traded to the Reds, and that sucked, or maybe signed as a free agent. I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Can you imagine if Tom Seaver was healthy and because when he actually did all right when he pitched for the Red Sox. You know what if he
Yes.
had pitched if they didn't have to go to Bruce Hurst in game 7 of the 86 World Series and Tom Seaver pitching in game 7 against the Mets in the World Series for I mean,
Oh,
you know, all we can do is
the theater.
wonder what would have happened. So
No, you're 100% right, and I think he was I looked because I was checking the roster and I looked him up, and he was 5-7, and he had a 3.80 ERA, and he actually had a 3.27 FIP.
yeah,
So defense kind of let him down a little bit. I would have loved that would have changed the course of history potentially if he had been able to pitch in the 86 World
yeah,
Series. And I remember him hurting his knee in August, and I do remember that. And they were like, he might be back for the postseason. He never
never
made
made
it
it
back.
back. All right, let's see what else we got. Let's go back to our tree here. Hold on. Oh, how about some Joe Hesketh?
Joe Hesketh.
Look at that. Talk about there's
Yes.
another guy who doesn't look like an athlete. He weighs
No,
about as much as this card.
you know what I think? I think Joe Hesketh was the precursor to Nick Pavetta. That's what
Oh,
I
you're
think.
right. Yeah.
Because
Oh.
I did a little digging. First of all, I did not have to look at this up, but I remember Joe Hesketh wore number 55 because this is like I can't remember the stats, but I remember like, oh, he wore 55. But I did look up that he pitched for 5 years for the Sox.
He was
In
there 5
1991.
years?
That's
Oh,
yeah.
I did not
And
remember that.
yep, and in 1991, he was 12-4 with a 3.29 ERA, which is that's pretty respectable. And then the rest of the time, he was totally mid, like almost 500 with an ERA over 4. Again, that's Nick Pavetta in the modern
Yes.
era. That's just him before.
Yes, right. So one's a righty and one's a lefty. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
They're like
Yeah.
mirror images of each other. So
Yeah.
oh, that's great. I remember that year in 91 where he was just money. It was like Tom Bolton the year before. By the way, Tom Bolton. Here he is. Are we right? Look at that.
Oh, Tom
Look at that
Bolton.
mustache. He's like, I don't belong here.
He was like, I used to make videos that had a lot of X's in them.
Yeah, forget the banker. That's right.
Look at
Yeah.
that. I'm just gonna throw this ball and hopefully nobody knows that I just walked into the stadium. Um, I've got another one. Hold on. Tony
Oh, this is
Armas.
awesome.
Here we go. Tony
Tony
Armas.
Armas.
Now I like this card only because this was he was the subject of a joke that we used to tell in my middle school. I don't know if Ken, growing up in Chicopee, if you guys told this joke in high school. My favorite Red Sox joke when I was a kid. Who is the only Red Sox player with 4 body parts in his name? Tony
Tony.
Armas.
No, wait. Can you
But
Wow.
That sounds right.
all right, we're gonna close with this one because this is one that I have so many fond memories of, specifically from 1990. Carlos Quintana. Remember
The
Oh,
the
Q.
Q?
the Q. Oh, I forgot they called him
The
that.
Q, yeah. Had no business playing first base for an entire season, but he did, and he did all right.
Well, he was a great defensive
He was
first
pretty good,
baseman.
yeah.
And what I remember about him was he was a very respectable, dependable professional hitter who was pretty clutch.
Yeah.
But my real memory of him was an off-field memory. You guys remember he got in a car
Yes,
accident?
and we never heard from him again, I
Yeah.
feel like, right?
Yeah. It essentially ended his career.
Yeah. But weren't there some shady circumstances? Like, wasn't, something
Yeah.
I
he was
think he's
targeted, or I don't wanna.
Ken, do you remember this, Ken?
I do, but I don't remember. I do remember there was something shady about it. I do remember, like Joel said, all of a sudden we never heard another word about it, and
Yeah.
yeah, it
I
was
think
wild.
he was driving injured people to the hospital,
Yes.
and they had been at a club. That's all I
There
remember.
may have been gunshot wounds. We're just wildly speculating and possibly making up facts, but
Allegedly.
it was a caper. Um, but all right. Well, we're gonna keep the tree. I'm gonna put this back in my backyard, and
All
we'll
right.
revisit that. I think this needs to become a new recurring segment. I'm gonna see if any other fruit is born from this. If I can plug it. Look, it lights up too. Look at that. You see the
That
lights?
wow.
Wow.
Wow. That is
Wow.
one
I
tree.
had no idea, but
Can you get that thing to grow a little Bitcoin?
or actual money.
Sure.
Well, this has
Sure.
been. I think we're getting close to the end here, and this has been. I've had so much fun. I hope you got Ken. I hope you've had a good time reliving the past with us here today. So
I do. I appreciate having tour guides like you who actually remember the facts. I just remember the fun stories about it. But you guys are great. So this has been awesome.
very good.
Well, Ken, I mean, just the performance value of the story in the Herald and the sleeping out. I mean, those are two anecdotes that I will always remember.
I have another very short anecdote about that. The funniest thing
Please.
when we were waiting in line, but where we were on the sidewalk was right where the players, parking lot is, that green gate that you
Yeah.
can't see into, and literally every
Yes.
single person who walked out of that gate, everybody would chant, "Dewey,
Oh,
Dewey, Dew." None of them were Dwight Evans. Like they were literally like guys who drove cars or janitors would come out and they'd be like, "Dewey, Dewey." It just was going on a
hey,
lot.
even a stopped clock is right twice. One of them's got to be Dewey. He's got to. There's a lot of mustaches. Tom Bolton had a
Yeah.
mustache. It could have been him for all we know. So, this has been a lot of fun. This is Ken West of 88.9 WERS, longtime radio fixture in the Boston area. Also, just want to remind people that you can send in your Where Were You stories. You can email us at info@wherewereyoupodcast.com. Chad and I like to put together a little mailbag. We'll read them. We'll record it, and you can get your name on the YouTubes. Also, mailbag. Also, the absolute best way to support us, hit the subscribe button or the follow button, wherever you're listening or watching right now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeart. The more subscribers we have, the better. We really want this to be fun and grow into something that people will enjoy. You can find us on all the socials: Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, and all that good stuff. But also thanks to Molly Beck Ferguson, my sister, who wrote the theme song. So, I forgot.
Classmate of mine at Emerson.
Yes, right. Yeah, a member of your graduating class at Emerson. That's right.
Yes.
That's
Forgot to
awesome.
give her a shout out last week. So thanks again. But we'll do it again. Ken, I hope we can have you back. There's a lot of Red Sox seasons I'm sure we could discuss. So I hope you'll do it again with us sometime.
Yes.
So
I'd be happy to. Thank you guys for having me on. It was a
very
blast.
good. Chad,
Oh my God. Thank God you came on.
yes. Thanks so much, guys. This is Where Were You? And we'll see you next time.